Welcome to Declassified, What Lies Behind America. This is the special investigative series with Will Marsh,
Luke Smith,
Jessica,
and Erick Cruz.
What's up, guys? We are your best friends right now, at least as it pertains to some of the most interesting knowledge about your government and your leaders. So if y'all have been following us on this special series, we have gone through a handful of topics so far, including what happens out at Bohemian Grove, Operation Paperclip, and what we did with the Nazis after World War II. But lately, we have been expanding on a very butchering my words already here, guys, on a very interesting topic that I believe has happened during the lifetime of most of the people that will be listening to this series. Part one, we did kind of what happened, Eric, leading up to 9/11. I know on part 2 of 3, we got into a lot of the events that day. And now this part 3 of 3, I think that, you know, there's a lot of info, but we're going to try to cram into about half an hour with you of kind of what happened after the towers fell and were smoldering, and then this whole Iraq deal. So, yeah, I mean, I got a lot of questions, Eric, but I'm going to let you take it away for us.
Yeah, so I want to kind of start off, like, when we've seen footage of the towers falling. They fell at free fall speed, right? I mean, they were coming down. They came down in 10 seconds, right? I mean, we all saw that.
Yeah, it was controlled demolition, right?
So a lot of people, when you look at the footage and you look at it in slow motion, as they're coming down, as the towers are coming down, you see little implosions of bursts of concrete below where it's coming down. And I mean, that raises a few flags right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember looking at the video too. You saw, like, I mean, so it started coming down at the top, but then, like, you could see the windows, like, 30, 40, stories beneath blowing out, as it went down. So, but no, anyway, so I know there's a lot of pieces to this, but we can go ahead and pick up right at about where we left off last time. So,
yeah, so like I said last time, Marvin Bush, President Bush's brother, was running the security up until that event of the World Trade Center and Dulles International Airport, which is where the plane from the Pentagon took off. Then you had Turner Construction was the one that did the fireproofing work on the towers.
Yep.
The same floors that got hit. And so, let me find his name, but there was former professor, Dr. Stephen E. Jones, conducted tests on some of the dust chips that he picked up at Ground Zero. And he was looking under an electron microscope. He saw that some of the chips were actually thermite. There was iron oxide and these different chemicals that make up thermite. And they tested the thermite chips. And what they found was that these pieces ignited super quickly. They didn't burn for long periods of time, and it was at such high temperatures. It's a very quick reaction.
Hang on. So before we go any further, there's a lot of big words there. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Jessica and Luke aren't confused, but for me, if we could break this down a little bit. So you're saying that they found particles, and there was science behind it that they tested. And what was the finding or the results? I'm trying to break this down.
Why was
baby
there
style.
thermite there?
That's a good question. Why was there thermite there? Why did he find thermite pieces at Ground Zero? And why would this...
What is thermite again? I want to ask.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
That's kind of where I was going.
Thermite is commonly used for controlled demolitions, when they're bringing a building down. But why would such an accredited person with multiple colleagues they have the doctorates, they're very smart people, very accredited, why would they come out and say this if it wasn't true? You know what I'm saying? So...
Good point.
A lot of people believe that it was a controlled demolition, and like you said in the last episode, the owner he got the money from the insurance companies, like you said.
He made a ton of money off that.
You're talking about the owner of the towers?
Yeah. You got any idea how much he made?
He doubled up. Let me see if I can Google that real quick, actually. I've got my computer here. Y'all keep going, but I'm going to see if I can get us an answer to that, because that's a really good question, Luke.
Yeah, no, he took out 2 policies.
And for concrete steel structures to collapse in 10 seconds, free fall speed, I mean, that's incredible. That's never happened unless it's been a controlled demolition.
Larry, all right, I got it here. Larry Silverstein.
Yeah.
You think he was Jewish?
3.2 billion.
Yeah, so in July 2001, just 2 months before the terrorist attacks of September 11th, the Port Authority agreed to lease the Twin Towers to Larry Silverstein, a New York developer. That's all I can see here. This is on the History Channel, so I know we like to cite our sources on here. Luke can validate this, as well as the guys back in the sound room behind me, because I know they can see my computer screen. We're on the History Channel's website, and let me pull this. I'm glad you brought that up, Luke. They want me to sign up for a newsletter now. Let me exit that out. The iconic Twin Towers of downtown Manhattan's World Trade Center were in a triumph of human imagination. Completed in 1973, the towers stood at 110 stories each, accommodating 50,000 workers and over 200,000 daily visitors in over 10 million square feet of space. This is going on and on and on. I was trying to find the info about Larry Silverstein.
400 million a month almost is how much he's getting though.
God,
Yeah,
I see that here.
He was 0 years old for 99.
Did you know more than 10,000 workers were involved in the building the World Trade Center? Let me see.
Oh, the Rockefellers were in it. I didn't realize
Yeah,
that.
I just realized that here. This was the Twin Towers was a Rockefeller establishment built it.
Weren't we talking about them on Bohemian Grove, or was that Paperclip?
If we weren't talking about them on Bohemian Grove, we probably should have been.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past me.
I'm sure they're involved. So no, there's so much stuff in this article, but I'm not going to keep going through it. But yeah, it was Larry Silverstein was the owner.
And then we get to Building 7. It
Came down the same way, right?
But the thing is, both towers collapsed in the morning, right, around 9:30. Building 7 collapsed at 5:20 p.m.
Yeah.
And there's 2 key witnesses that came out of that building that day. Their names are Michael Hess and Barry Jennings. Barry Jennings, he's deceased right now, but Barry Jennings came out. The news reporters came up to him and asked him what happened. He reported that he heard explosions. When he was in there, the whole lobby, the first 5 floors were completely blown out. A 2007 interview of Barry Jennings, he stated that him and Michael Hess were the only 2 to make it out alive. They were walking over bodies, and
he was the deputy director of the Emergency Services Department for New York City Housing Authority. Is that right?
I believe so. I believe so.
Holy cow, y'all are on an entirely different level than me right now.
Where was he when the bombs went, or when the planes hit?
He was, I believe.
Oversaw it.
Yeah, he wasn't in the building then, but he was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. But no, so the National Institute of Safety and Technology, NIST, when they published their report on how Building 7 collapsed, 2 days before they released that report, he passed away.
Passed away, or was that more?
Yeah, was it like a mysterious suicide,
An email.
Not to get into conspiracies or anything.
Yeah, well, we don't do conspiracies on this podcast.
So, yeah, he passed away, and there's no official report. We can't really find out. So there's a screenshot of an email from a private investigator, and this is a quote from the email that the private investigator sent to one of the members of Barry's family, because they wanted to find out what happened, right?
Yeah.
The email said, "Due to some of the information I have uncovered, I have determined that this is a job for the police. I have refunded your credit card. Please do not contact me again concerning this individual."
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like somebody was pushing on him to do that.
And NIST, when they released the report, they said there was no explosions and that his his first-hand account was invalid. That wasn't true. So 2 people that made it out alive had the same story.
Yeah.
And it changed their lives forever. He says when he sleeps, he still has, he sees the explosions and hears it, and
Nightmares of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that. I still work in the people who know me well know that I work in financial services still part-time, and there's a brokerage office that I work out of in Winston-Salem, and I don't know, it was last year I was at one of their meetings, and we had a new guy who had joined our team. He was a Series 7 registered FINRA advisor, and he got into that business because he was an NYPD cop. And he was on duty that morning, and he was there, watched it all unfold, was there for the days out, because I don't think those guys got any sleep for a week. They just kept working at ground zero, and was saying that he still like he moved down here to get away from it all because like he's still suffering nightmares every night, every time he closes his eyes. I mean, this guy was a NYPD detective, career long. I mean, he wasn't soft.
Yeah.
And big guy, and he was up there crying in front of us talking about it. So I can't imagine. I mean, that many years later, the emotional impact it still has on people, even though they've probably gotten help with therapy and counseling and medication, and like it just. I can't imagine.
Yeah,
so
and stuff like that, it just never leaves you.
One of y'all asked, I think, a moment ago about people that survived in the... I'm looking online right now. This is Wikipedia, again, to cite my source, but it looks like there was a total of 18 people that were in the top of the towers above where the planes hit that survived.
Jeez.
I don't know how 18 people made it out of that.
Yeah, how do you make that
I mean,
happen?
that's like... Yeah, so I mean, I guess you get in a pocket of debris and write it down.
Yeah.
I know one of those people, there was this crazy story. I mean, so it's sad, that there was a lot of heroism, if that's a word, and, a lot of very sad stories. Yeah, heroism, thank you. That happened with the New York Fire Department that day. And I forget the guy's name. There are so many stories, but there was one firefighter who, made it all the way to the top, go through the stairwell to rescue people. And when the towers came down, he was in the very, very top. And he grabbed onto a piece of concrete and steel, and he rode that piece of concrete down 100 stories to the bottom.
And he lived.
Now, he broke like every single bone in his body, and I think he was in like ICU for 2 years. And
Is he still paralyzed?
I'm sure. Now, to be fair, he probably died shortly thereafter because that many health, like I doubt the body will ever recover from that. Plus, there's all the silica dust that killed all those people. So, but I mean, it's just miraculous to get that high up, and I mean, can't imagine that clinging for your life and just watching it all go out from underneath you and free falling toward the asphalt below.
Do you guys think that we should still have the Patriot Act almost 20 years after 9/11, or has the power of the Patriot Act been abused in recent years with new classifications of terrorism here on the domestic front?
That's an incredibly good question.
I think we need it very bad.
I also agree with you that it's been misused and abused. So I don't know what the answer is,
I think
Jessica,
it could
because
be
I mean,
used a
they're
little
both
bit
sides of that are
harder in some
valid. I
places.
mean,
There's a anecdotal phrase, if you trade freedom for security, you get neither.
yeah.
And I do agree with you. We need some sort of,
Maybe a revision of it, but so actually on the Patriot Act, there was what's that secret court in is it FICA court? No, what's it called? That secret court that's in D.C. that Trump had Robert Mueller do an audit of when he was president, and it's a like a closed court that like law enforcement agencies can go to like get warrants under the Patriot Act, but it's secretive because they do it because like nobody can be there to represent the defendant because they don't know about it. And when they did this audit a few years ago, they audited like 300 cases. I mean, there's thousands and thousands, but in every single case they audited, they found that there were wrongful discrepancies and due process was not followed.
No surprise there.
Yeah.
I wish I knew the name of it, but I live in kind of a lethological state of mind, meaning that, I don't know, it's like a mindset of not remembering names, places, and things in one ear and right out the other in simpler terms.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought up the Patriot Act because I think that was a result certainly of 9/11, and I think our president at the time, and as well as the people, felt there was a need for security and figuring out who our enemy was so we didn't have to deal with this again. But I think the result of that has maybe not, I mean, I don't know what you think.
We haven't had another
Eric,
9/11, so I'd say it worked pretty well.
I just find it strange, like how do you
Freedom isn't free.
They found,
Yeah, but there's a lot of innocent people that were victimized and have had their lives turned upside down because of ambitious, unethical government agents abusing that, though.
I just find it strange when you hear the stories of, the government agencies finding passports atop the rubble in perfect condition. They found the passports.
That's weird.
Passports of the hijackers in perfect condition on top of the rubble. So, we know we can link these back to Afghanistan. And so in 1897, a guy named Smedley Butler, that was kind of a funny name. Smedley Butler. He became the youngest major general in the army. In July 1934.
Which army?
America. He was elected in 1930.
What was his age? Because, like, wasn't Nathaniel Greene, like, a general in the U.S. Army at, like, age 17 or something insane like that?
I'm not sure.
No,
But
this is
He was
early
in the
20s.
Marine Corps, just to clarify.
Oh.
in 1897, he was elected to the House of Representatives. And so in 1934, two guys came up to him, and they basically offered him $30 million and the support of 500,000 troops and the mainstream media to lead a coup against President Roosevelt and get him out of office. So Butler went along for a while with this plot, and he met with the conspirators of this plot, and these guys included members of the DuPont family, leaders of U.S. Steel, Heinz Standard Oil, General Motors, Chase National Bank, Goodyear Tires, and Prescott Bush, which is President George W. Bush's grandfather. Now these guys,
So this was H.W.'s father.
this is the OG Daddy Bush.
Think about how much power you have to be able to say, I'm gonna
Think
get my
about
friends to
how
come
much
in."
this guy screwed up the world with his son and grandsons teaching
Oh, that's-
them.
And if you think
That's
about
a
it,
whole nother rabbit trail.
if
We're
you
not
think
going down,
about
so I
it,
didn't mean to hit your mic.
If you think about it, this country was built on oil money, steel money,
And slaves.
and the motors, the Industrial Revolution, all these corporations. So these guys wanted to install a fascist regime like the ones in Nazi Germany to combat the Great Depression. So they got together and they were trying to form this plan to get out of the Great Depression, and they were like thinking about, installing some fascist ideals into the government. So Smedley Butler blew the whistle to the House of Representatives. They listened to him, but the House of Representatives never went after any of the conspirators. They didn't go after Bush. They didn't go after the DuPont family. None of them.
Do we know why?
It's like the Hillarys.
The Hillarys, yeah.
And then apparently...
Ooh, speaking of that, I'm so glad you brought up Hillary Clinton. If y'all are watching this on the video today, or on the podcast, you're going to miss out here. I got to show this for the video. I knew you were going to bring up Hillary, Luke, so I wore this shirt just for the podcast.
A national security threat.
Love it.
Y'all can see it on the video. There
Love
you go.
Oh,
It's my anti-Hillary shirt.
Love it.
All right, where were we?
Hey, don't even get me started on Hillary. But
I could say a lot.
Yeah.
yeah, so he blew the whistle.
And it's a lot different growing up there, where it's an eye for an eye, and then you grow up here and you learn more about forgiveness and equalness for everybody and equality. So that's where I see the difference in it. That's probably where they all go wrong.
Yeah, I used to kind of think that too, but when I went over there as a soldier, like, we treated them like shit. And, like, soldiers are not nice to the locals. Like, and I was thinking after a year deployment over there, I'm like, if I was they're called Bedouins, like the local people who live in the desert, they're Bedouins is their term for themselves. If I was a Bedouin in the Middle East, I would probably hate the U.S. military too for always invading our land and being mean and bullies and controlling what we do and rolling up in our houses and wanting information. I mean, if any other country did that to us here, we'd hate them too.
I mean, think about what they're dealing with before we got there, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, they had Saddam, like Eric was just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of the world's bullies if you think about it. Like America, it's the best place on earth. With freedom of speech, we have all kinds of food, all kinds of people, music, everything. It's like the melting pot of the world, right?
You better do what we say and get along with us, or somebody
Yeah.
else will be raising your sons and daughters.
And it's just weird to look at history, and you kind of see America as this big bully, right? And you see that, the wars that we got into, like especially Vietnam.
Yeah.
Remember the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the whole ship being in international waters, and we had no business being there. And even with World War II, there's, some people say that the president at the time knew that the Japanese were coming and they didn't evacuate the base, and they let it happen as an excuse to enter World War II, because after World War II, America was on top of everybody else. We were king after World War II.
Do you think we created the enemy we fight today by arming the Middle Eastern countries during the Cold War to combat the USSR?
Oh, she's got
Yeah,
so many good
Luke was talking
questions.
about that last time, about how we were the ones that trained the regimes and everything.
Yeah, I think that's kind of weird. We send them all this ammunition and all these guns, and then at the same time they want to take away their own citizens' guns and ammunition. I think that's a little weird.
Well, to be fair, we have built allies around the world, like since World War II. Like y'all two were just talking about it. I mean,
They're only allies while we're there, though. As soon as we let our foot up off their neck, they're gonna do the same thing again.
there are a lot of genuine people in the Middle East, though, that
I
want
agree.
peace. I mean, they want peace over there because they haven't had it, and it's just a turmoil place. But back on the World War II subject, though, you have to forget, like, we didn't see it as bad in the continent of North America, but all of Europe and Asia were getting completely taken over and slaughtered by Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, and even more scary, like, if you look at the battle of the World War II throughout Europe, like, Hitler kept taking European country after European country after European country, and eventually, like, Great Britain was completely surrounded.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have been scared shitless if I was Britain. Like, if you look at the map of the war then. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, we got drug into World War II because, we all know in the Pearl Harbor and all that. But, I mean, a lot of countries, though, had good reason to be allies with us because if you fought with us, or if at least you aligned with us, not just in war, but like on a political level with NATO and world funding and all that, you did get a lot of funding from us. We did help your military, and we helped make your military better to help keep your country safe, and then we would also come in, but, everything's a give and take relationship, and like you said, you may give people too much power, and then they turn on you, like...
Yeah, what was it? Was it Project Paperclip you were talking about?
Operation Paperclip, yeah.
Yeah, where after World War II, after the Nuremberg trials, we kind of brought some of those guys back in here.
Yeah.
And
Well, just some, we brought a lot of them.
yeah, and that's
Moved
kind
them out of
of,
Huntsville, Alabama, and built the space program.
and it makes you wonder, like, what's the real hidden objective that
Strategy.
It's slowly unfolding
what's
right now.
going on? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and to be fair, I mean, what the CIA said at the time, and we know that Russia was going after these people, and so after the Reich had fallen, all these top Nazis were threatened with death, and the Soviets said, "You can come here, we'll kill you," and the CIA was like, "Hey, come here, we'll give you money, we'll give you a whole new life and freedom."
Yeah.
And to be fair, if we didn't get those guys, Russia would have, and how could the world have changed after? Because like Eric, I think you brought up the Industrial Revolution and the Roosevelt time, and we had the Eisenhower interstate system after World War II, and there was so much infrastructure. We had Jessica, you brought up the Cold War. There's this whole arms race that was going on during that time with Russia, I think. We went to space, and so there's no telling what our world and our country could have looked like if Mother Russia became the superpower after World War II. So yeah, there was a lot of screwed up stuff about Operation Paperclip, but I don't know what the right answer was there.
It is kind of crazy to think about history because, I mean, this is totally off topic, but, the Spanish Armada was the biggest fleet in history at the time, and they were going to invade Britain. And they got wiped, half their fleet got wiped out by a storm. So if Britain got taken over by Spain, we probably would be speaking Spanish right now.
That's true, yeah.
It's just crazy how history is.
Very grateful to live in America. I know Luke, Jessica, Eric, me, everybody here, we probably don't understand just how blessed we are to be. I mean, even free speech. There's a lot of places in the world that if we were doing this podcast, we wouldn't have even gotten this far. Government agents would have probably rushed in the room by this point, and our families would have been lied to. We would have never seen the light of day again. I mean, you laugh, but it's really not funny. That happens in so many places. These Middle Eastern countries we've been talking about. I mean, it's... So, anyway.
Don't catch me in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Definitely not as a woman.
Yeah, it's a whole other challenge. So, guys, thank you for being here today. I know we've rambled on about a bunch of different subjects. Eric, you are so prepared as always, and Jessica,
Appreciate
your
it.
questions are phenomenal. I don't want to keep you guys too long here, but we'll kind of bring this subject of 9/11 and what happened to a close. But before we do, is there anything else that y'all want to add or ask that you felt like we haven't adequately hit on in this series?
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay.
I think we're good to go.
Just think that we're never going to know for sure,
Very
It's
true.
just
They're
important
just
to-
going to keep dying, and then it'll become less of a priority.
Yeah, it's just important to talk about stuff like this because,
History repeats itself.
yeah, I mean, even if it's theories, or it's good to know different sides of things so you have knowledge of what's going on and what could happen, but
Very true. Well, guys, we appreciate you joining into this episode. This has been episode 5, but part 3 of Declassified: What Lies Behind America. We all appreciate you being here, and we'll see you on the next episode. Later, guys.